Here's what's coming up on today's show.
And that's the importance of planning, is that you have time to look at it before you have to make a knee-jerk reaction. Or, unfortunately, if you make the wrong decision, you have to pay for the mistake later.
Welcome to the How Money Works podcast with Craig and Jennifer Moser of Maestro Wealth Advisors, serving you throughout the Triad of North Carolina for more than 30 years.
Time once again to learn how money works with a great team from Maestro Wealth Advisors here, talking investing, finance, and retirement, and serving you in the Triad. Their office in Winston-Salem. You can reach out to them at 833-RETIRE-WELL for your consultation and conversation. 833-RETIRE-WELL for that complimentary chat with the whole team at Maestro Wealth Advisors, all the Mosers, Craig, Jennifer, Cameron, Heather, and so on and so forth. And this week we're going to shake it up a little bit. We got Jennifer and Cameron here. So we're going to, no Craig this week, but that's all right. We're going to have a good conversation with these guys. Of course, Jennifer is a certified exit planning advisor, and Cameron Moser is an accredited asset management specialist and an AIF. So listen, you got a couple of alphabet soup things going on here, just so we can kind of get to know you a little bit. What is the AIF? What does that stand for, and what is that?
That is the Accredited Investment Fiduciary designation.
Okay.
And everyone asks me in meetings and whatnot, they're like, are you a fiduciary? What does that mean? And I figured, you know what, let's actually become a designated fiduciary.
Okay.
So took some training and passed a test, and here I am.
Gotcha. And then you also have the AAMS. I mentioned that was the Accredited Asset Management Specialist. How are they different? Are they similar, or what's the deal there?
They are definitely very different. So the AIF is on the fiduciary side, so making sure that I'm making the best decisions for my clients and in their best interest. Mm-hmm. AAMS is basically the investment management side, so portfolio design, things like that, because I didn't really have a background in this industry prior to joining the firm. I learned from my parents, learned through my designation and licensing path, and I really wanted to understand how to better put together portfolios for our clients.
I gotcha.
That's why I went for that one.
Went some extra schooling, and this is one of those industries, Jennifer, right, where you're always learning something and you're always doing updates to it and all that kind of stuff. So
always learning, and it's such a multifaceted industry that we deal with. When people come to see us, Cameron and you can agree, they're looking to us for advice on their investment portfolio. They're looking for advice on how do they create retirement income, how do they deal with leaving a legacy to their children, and the best way to do that through trusts or wills and that kind of thing, and property management, how to do that, the health insurance. And it's very multifaceted, and it's important to keep those designations and that learning going. So I'm a proud mama of my son.
Well, there you go. Well, you mentioned a couple of things in there. One of those we're going to talk about to kick off this part of the show this week, some estate planning mistakes. There are some people who don't care too much about leaving a financial legacy, and that's totally fine, right? Whatever you want to do, but there's others that do. But either way, there is some common, kind of planning boo-boos you can get into. Some easy to fix, maybe some a little more complicated. So let's talk about a few of those this week, and we'll dive in and let Cameron cut his teeth some more here on the radio and tackle this pretty tough topic a little bit when you think about it, right? So failing to plan for expenses, guys, that can be foreseen, right? Especially healthcare, not just necessarily the unforeseen, but foreseen stuff could be an estate planning boo-boo. Talk to me about that.
Well, most people don't want to really think about their own frailties and what could happen when they do age. And unfortunately, we do age. If we're lucky enough, we do age. And then that does incur some additional expenses, whether you're living at home and needing help and assistance with doing just the, painting the house or putting the roof on, things that you used to do yourself, but also the healthcare issues as well. Maybe you're not able to, feed yourself, dress yourself. Maybe you are even more failing and have to have an assisted living. It's very expensive, and most people underestimate that in their financial plan. Cameron, wouldn't you say that when people come to see you, that's one of the things you're like, oh, I didn't realize how expensive it is, and how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the least known about area. It seems like people are planning, I'm going to have a perfect life and live until I'm 90, 95. But you really don't think about the degradation of your health throughout that process. And unfortunately, that's oftentimes the case.
And usually what happens is that first spouse that has that health issue all the resources are going to basically care for that spouse and not realizing that it does deplete the nest egg for the surviving spouse. So it's really important to cover that. How are you going to cover it? Are you going to self-insure? A lot of people decide to self-insure. A lot of people, when they look at it and we do our analysis, they say, well, can we find a product or a solution that might help defray some of the cost? Most people don't realize that for a person who's retiring at 65 today, it's about $172,000 of just medical expenses. That's your Medicare premium, that's drug cost, services, physician costs, whatever, outside of what Medicare pays. And then in addition to that, if you have a long-term care event, it's at least about $100,000 a year for the number of years that you might have that elevated health need in long-term care. So it's very important to plan.
Yeah. Another thing to note there is that you might have one spouse that has the long-term care event, and they might have to go into a facility, and the other spouse is still living at home. So you have double expenses, not to mention even more expenses from the long-term care perspective.
It's very important to plan. We had a client that come in, long-term client that had a life insurance, and she was thinking, what do I do with this life insurance policy? I'm really concerned about my long-term care event. We actually went through the analysis of doing a conversion of her policy, and then we looked at going out and changing that policy to a new policy that would cover long-term care if it were needed, but then also provide a death benefit if she didn't need the long-term care. So it kind of played two roles. We were able, and we had the luxury of time to do that analysis, and they looked at it and they came back and decided, I am willing to accept the risk that I'm going to self-fund, because it really didn't move the needle when we looked at the analysis of, do I provide long-term care coverage outside, or do I self-fund within my own nest egg? And that's the importance of planning, is that you have time to look at it before you have to make a knee-jerk reaction. Or, unfortunately, if you make the wrong decision, you have to pay for the mistake later.
Yeah, very, very true. Some good stuff there to think about it. And some of these things, like I said, can be complicated to fix or deal with. Some can be pretty easy, right? So an estate planning mistake that often gets really just done on a regular basis that could be avoided simply is just updating those beneficiary designations. So talk to me about some of that.
We see a lot of people with beneficiary designations that get kind of out of whack. They go through and they talk to their attorney and create a beautiful estate plan. They might put in a revocable trust. They might have a will with testamentary trust, but then they never point their assets to the beneficiaries that they've designated. So they have an asset at the bank or an investment account that has no payable on death or transfer on death designation, and therefore it just pours into their will and then has to go through a very inefficient process to distribute to their heirs by going through probate. And it's a costly expense as well. We've seen several.
And it's so simple to fix, though, right? Just
it's so simple.
Just write in a name, things of that nature.
It is. You will have to go to the bank. Typically, it's a joint account. They want both people there to actually fill out the payable on death. One unique thing with payable on death versus transfer on death, a payable on death will only allow you to do equal distributions for primary or contingent beneficiaries. But for an investment account on a transfer on death, you can say 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever, as long as your contingent and your primary equal 100%. It doesn't have to be equally distributed. I don't know who makes the rules, but that's the way they are. And then, for women, you've got to think about, do you have an old 401k that may have had maybe your former spouse's last name or maybe your maiden name and you never changed it? And you need to get that stuff done as well, in addition to the beneficiary designations. Craig likes to tell this story, Cameron, about this man who was on 4 wives, and he passes away, and he goes in, the 4 wives go to the attorney meeting to settle the estate, and they realize, wife number 3 is still on the life insurance policy, and wife 4 was cut off. And that didn't go well. So
no.
It's important to keep
Although
that
he's
up.
not there to get beat up on, but still didn't go well. No. To that point, Cameron, it doesn't matter what you write in your will, right? It matters what these BDs are.
Absolutely. If you do not go and change the beneficiary or TOD or POD on these accounts, then your will, eventually it will get to the right people, but it won't do it efficiently, like Jennifer was saying.
Yeah. And what you were saying, Mark, is that what you have on the account trumps.
It trumps it, yeah.
What is in your will. Like if you have, child 1 on the beneficiary, it's going to go to child one and no other child gets it if you have multiple children. So you really need to understand the nuances and how that works. So, and that's one of the things we do here at Maestro is when you come in, we make sure your estate plan is done. We make sure the assets that we manage are pointing in the right direction, and then we assist our clients with outside assets to make sure that those are pointing in the same direction. And we typically follow up with them about every 2 to 3 years. Any new accounts? What did you do? Or what didn't you do, to make sure it's all buttoned up?
Yeah. I want to touch on this one more, Jen, before we do jump out and take a break. And it's a big one that happens a lot. And that's the transferring of some kind of an asset, right, while still alive versus instead at passing, right, whether it's a house or an asset or whatever the case is. That's an important, and that's a big boo-boo people get into.
It is, and it really is important because people are trying to do the right thing. A mother, a father, maybe their spouse has left them alive and they've passed, and they're trying to think, how do I efficiently give this asset to my children? And they think, well, I'll just put my child's name on the house, or
right.
I'll give it to the child and I'll live there. What they don't realize they're doing is basically creating an unintentional tax consequence to the next generation. So what happens in most assets at death, you get a step up in cost basis. It's either date of death or 9 months after. And so most of my generation and younger have lived in their house quite a number of years, so they probably paid a lot less for that house than what it's currently worth now. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is when they give that gift to the child, I'm going to use you as an example, Cameron. If we were to give the house to you, you'd say thank you very much.
I would.
But anyway, but you would assume basically the cost basis that we bought it at. And then if we were to pass away, you basically have to pay the difference between the existing cost basis and what we gave it to you. So it was a gift, so you don't get a step up in cost basis.
Because you're still alive, because you're doing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at death, we'll basically get a step up in cost basis, and then hopefully, most people don't keep their parents' houses, right? They typically sell them. That's one of the jokes is, as soon as the casket goes in the ground is, we're going to sell mom and dad's house. Where's the realtor? But they'll get a step up in cost basis and not have to pay that capital gain, that 0, 15, or 20% capital gain on that asset. So that's a more efficient way to do a transfer of assets with property. And one thing that's very important, too, that I've learned with all the meetings that we always go to with our clients and the estate attorney, is that in North Carolina, if you have real estate outside of North Carolina, it's very important, more tax efficient, and better for you if you own that outside property out of North Carolina in a revocable trust. Much easier to transfer, much easier to do than to let it go through your will and go through that whole process, because you're going to have to probate your estate there and go through the property transfer, et cetera. So that's one thing I've learned in that regard.
833 Retire Well is how you get yourself onto the calendar to come on in for that consultation and conversation about your retirement journey. Again, at 833 Retire Well, or you can find them online at maestrowealth.com. That's maestrowealth.com, where there's a lot of good stuff for you to check out. The podcast version of the radio show, the YouTube channel, newsletter you can sign up for, and of course, lots of other tools, tips, and resources, and just get yourself onto the calendar. So either maestrowealth.com or 833 Retire Well. We're going to change topics in a second, Jen, but I know you wanted to touch on one more thing on estate planning. Yeah, go ahead.
I do, and I think this is probably the most key thing to talk about in estate planning, and that is really failing to take steps to avoid conflict and potential litigation among your heirs and family members. It's so sad when money's involved. Typically, you see some true personalities come out. Some of it is unavoidable, but some of it is just basically a lack of understanding and communication within the family. And it's so key to communicate. And it's funny, you talked about basically the resources that we have available. We send out a newsletter every month to our clients and prospective clients. In this past newsletter, it was the one holiday conversation that could save your family years of conflict. And it's basically setting up, because we're going into the holiday season, you're going to be around your loved ones. It's a perfect opportunity for you to sit down and talk to your kids, your heirs, about what it is that you desire with all of the assets and the stuff that you've done. How are they to know what your intention is, why you did certain things, why did you set it up as a trust? what is important to you. We talk about things that are important to us. And unfortunately, some people, some families are afraid to talk about money. Cameron, did you ever feel that we were afraid to talk about money?
No, not at all. I mean, it's your business. So I feel like it was a little bit more common than most families, but I never noticed that in our family.
Yeah. And I think it's so key. It's interesting. There's some statistics that we have in the newsletter. And if you are listening today and you don't get our newsletter, I highly encourage you to do it. Whether you're a do-it-yourselfer, you're 10 years away from retirement, you're in retirement, a lot of good information comes out of our newsletters, and we really take great care in creating and crafting these newsletters to give you that good information. So go to our website, maestrowealth.com, and ask for our newsletter. Or you can always call 833-RETIRE-WELL and say, sign me up for the newsletter. But here's some statistics that really kind of shocked me.
Okay.
Only 30% of wealthy families successfully transfer their wealth to the next generation. Do you know what the number one reason of failure is?
Lack of communication?
Lack of family communication and trust, not poor investments or bad preparations. And that comes from Vanguard. Families who discuss finances beforehand tend to experience less stress during times of grief and loss. And that's from Forbes. So I really think you need to get rid of the taboo during the table conversation, when you're next to your kin during this family time, coming up at Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah. You need to basically talk about the importance of money and what you've done and what you want and why you've set things up the way you have. You don't have to give dollar amounts, but I would think it's more important to talk about the intention and what you feel about money, so that hopefully they will carry on that same learning aspect of money and what it can do for them or what it can't do for them. So anyway, that's my preaching today for the families and estate plan. Because honestly, you've worked your life for this.
Yeah, right.
Don't let it just go to chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about it, right?
Talk about it.
Let's do the next topic. So we're gonna, you guys do a lot of traveling.
I love to travel.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a little fun. Do they let you travel, Cameron, or do you always have to man the front of the Fort?
I don't really get to go at the same times as them. My wife and I did just get back from Spain.
I know. I was going to say you better fess up here.
Okay, good. I was just say they make you mind the fort while they're traveling, but
we can't have everybody out.
That's
People
true.
need their money and need it moved.
That's
so
true.
I got to tell you, when Cameron. Gosh, how old are you? Or when were you in life? He planned this extensive cross-America trip.
Okay.
And in those skills I saw, he was organized, he was planned, he had the money down, he had the location. Everything's like, man, this guy's going to be a great financial advisor.
60 days on the road, all campsites booked, all hikes planned. It was a fun trip.
That's pretty cool, yeah. Well, more people actually spend more time planning, obviously, as we know, for vacations than they do for retirement, right? So that's a good asset for you to have and bring to that table. So, all right, well, with that in mind, let's have some fun. Let's fly the friendly skies of retirement planning. Let's see what we can kind of correlate between air travel and or vacation travel, how you want to do it, plus retirement planning. And anybody who knows anybody who's ever who does any piloting or anything like that knows you got to file a flight plan and have a checklist. These guys and gals are very astute about checking off the flight checklist as well as the flight plan before they get started. And you need that in retirement too. So talk to me about it.
Yeah, so you're probably going to hate this analogy by the time I'm done with it, because I've got every single topic covered.
Okay.
But when you think about the flight plan, you need to know where you're going to go, where you're going to travel in this trip. What type of plane do you need? Are you going to travel with 4 people? Are you going to travel with a group of 20? Do you need a Cessna 747? And do you have layovers? So that's really the first step that we take, is understanding what you want to accomplish. Secondly, we need to see, is your plan going to work? So we're going to assess the weather. How soon do you need to arrive? How long of a layover do you have? And things that can get in the way of those things. So in our world, that would be equivalent to the long-term care scenario. Someone passes away early, or maybe even taxes change in the future. But then at the end of the day, you have a certain time horizon that you're looking to get there. So that's really our second analysis type of a meeting that we take all of our clients through. Lastly, you want to have a team around you to make it a comfortable ride. These can be your flight attendants, these can be your pilots and whatnot. In our world, it's going to be a financial advisor, it's going to be a CPA, an attorney, And all of them are really going to update you on any changes to your route and help you direct the right path to get where you want to go efficiently.
And that's why we think, too, I mean, when you have those trusted advisors, and in this analogy, you've got your CPA, your financial advisor, and your estate planning attorney, you don't want to talk to them independently and them having their own flight path. Everybody has to work together for you to get there in the right amount of time and with the least amount of difficulty. So we create a team, and we like to create a team approach with all of our clients and their other trusted advisors. And if they don't have someone on board, we try to recommend someone to bring on board to make sure that we cover all those aspects for a successful landing or successful retirement. Cameron, let's talk about turbulence a little bit. We talked about the flight plan, but what about turbulence if it comes in the way?
Yeah, so we all hope that we have a very smooth flight. I mean, that's the best case scenario. But more often than not, something comes up and you hit turbulence. So you need to ask yourself, are you the type of person who wants to jump out with the parachute the second there's turbulence? Or do you want to sit in your seat until the plane crashes? I think that those are the polar extremes on either side, but really, in the end of the day, you want to have somebody that's going to help you determine when the right time is to jump. So in our world, we analyze portfolios, we look at markets and determine, hey, is this still a good investment given the current state of the world? And the analogy, I'll kind of equate that to someone checking the altitude and putting your parachute on for you so you don't jump out too early or too late and you don't make it.
It's really important to understand your plan in retirement so you don't make those rash decisions of jumping out, bailing out, et cetera, because there is going to be turbulence on the way. Markets don't go to heaven, straight to heaven. There is going to be some ups and downs. And the question is your plan designed to accommodate and take care of that turbulence? As an example, we typically look at investing. You've got your income buckets, your growth buckets, and your safe bucket. And why do you have those different buckets is because when turbulence does arise, you don't want to take money out of that growth bucket when that growth bucket is down, when you should have been able to have that income bucket already ready and generating that sustainable income through those turbulent times. So, I mean, that's kind of the analogy of the airlines to financial planning, but it really is, it's a good analogy because I don't know about you, Cameron, but when I sit in a plane and all of a sudden there's turbulence, I kind of look up. It's like, is anybody else concerned with this? You know?
Yeah, I always check.
As much as you travel, you still get nervous, huh?
I do. And then if it continues on, I'm like, I don't like this, but no one seems to be concerned. And I always look for what is the flight attendant doing? Mm-hmm. And if there is like a pilot that's like going to his next flight and he's sitting there, if he's just like, ho-hum reading a book, it's like, okay, no problem. I don't know what I'll do if I see someone really panicking. I don't know. But that's why it's important to work with a trusted advisor, one who's done this over and over again. I mean, Craig's been in the business for 30 plus years. I've been in the business for 30 years. Cameron, you're starting up, but you're learning great things from our practice and seeing, people come through and how we coach, our clients through. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to have that continuity and that experience so then they know what to expect and can explain things to you and make it understandable. And if you don't have a financial advisor who does explain things, who does walk this path with you, talks to you frequently, then I think you owe it to yourself to look around and maybe get a second opinion. We would like to be that second opinion in a call that you would make. It would be an honor to sit down with you to talk about what you have in place, what your goals are, to make sure you are going to be making it to and through retirement successfully. Our number is 833-RETIRE-WELL, and we chose that name appropriately because we do want you to retire well, and we think we do a good job of not only retiring you well, but also passing the legacy down to your children. So you're listening to Cameron Moser, a financial advisor, and Jennifer Moser, a certified exit planning advisor with Maestro Wealth Advisors. We're a mother, son, and husband team here, and we've got our daughter here as well. So it is a family approach to helping your family retire well.
Absolutely. So get yourself on the calendar, folks. Come on in for that consultation and conversation with Maestro Wealth Advisors at 833-RETIRE-WELL. That's 833-RETIRE-WELL. We'll see you next week here on How Money Works with the team from Maestro Wealth Advisors. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you have any questions about what we've discussed, remember, you can get a complimentary financial review with the team at Maestro Wealth Advisors by calling 833-RETIRE-WELL or go online to howmoneyworksradio.com for other great resources and ways to reach the team. You can also check the show notes of today's episode for our contact information as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the most popular apps. For Craig and Jennifer Moser, I'm Mark Killian. We'll talk to you next time on the How Money Works podcast.
Securities offered through Cetera Wealth Services, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cetera Investment Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.